Yeah, let's have a little taste here. Get a little bit of the turnip. See what we got. If you never had pork and turnip stew, give it a try. I think you'd enjoy it. So today for lunch, I think I'm gonna make me a turnip and pork stew, and I'm actually gonna use a Boston butt roast for the meat, for the pork. So first thing we want to do is dice up some bell pepper, and I'm gonna get a half a cup total, and get rid of the seeds, of course. And I'll usually just cut strips the thickness that I want, and then I'll just put them like this and just kind of try to get them mostly uniform. Something like that, like a medium dice. So we're gonna get a half a cup of those, and I'm gonna use one medium-sized onion, and I always leave the root side on. Basically, just cut it in half. Then I like to take it like this, and don't cut all the way to the back. And I'm gonna do a medium dice on this as well. I usually just go all the way, and then just slice it like this, and you basically get perfect dice. So let me get that done. For my seasoning blend, this is what I'm gonna start off with, and I may add some as it cooks, but I don't add a lot. I don't add too much salt when I first start. So when I add more, I'll jot it down. But I'm gonna start off with a half a tablespoon of paprika, garlic powder, Cajun seasoning, a half a teaspoon of cayenne, and a half a tablespoon of minced garlic. And basically just I usually buy the Great Value brand, but I don't like the way it doesn't really cook down in the stew. So I like to get my mortar and pestle and just kind of mash it till it forms a nice paste. So that'll be my garlic that I'm gonna use. And that's pretty much it for the seasoning goes. And here's the meat I'll be using. This is just the Boston butt pork roast. I like it because it does have a lot of fat in it, which to me it makes for a better turnip stew. So let me go ahead and get some of this cut off. I think I'm gonna use about 2 pounds of it. I'll see when I get it set up how much I'm actually use, but I think around 2 pounds of meat. So I got about 2 pounds of meat cut off, and I like to cut them pretty big, the pieces. I did trim just a little bit of the fat off, as you can see. But for the most part, I didn't try to trim a lot. I'll degrease the sauce towards the end of the cooking to remove pretty much all the grease from it. And but to cook it, I leave it on. It gives it a lot better flavor. So let me get started. So the first thing we'll do is brown the meat, and we won't put any seasoning on the meat because we don't want to burn it. So this is some roux I made last night. I'll put a link on how I made it. This is actually made in the microwave. So to start it off with, I'm gonna use some of the oil from the roux. Not a lot, about a little spoonful, and that'll just get the meat started. So once that gets hot, I'm gonna add the meat, and I'm gonna start browning it. I'm gonna probably do it in 2 batches because my pot's not quite big enough to get 2 pounds all at one time, because all it's gonna do is make the meat sweat. So let me get the grease heated, and I'll show you once I'm done with the first batch what it looks like. All right, pretty much got this little batch where I wanted it at. And like I said, it ain't gotta be perfect brown. I just want to get a little brown on it. So it probably took about 10 minutes, I guess, on a medium heat. And being we got a little oil rendered off the meat, I'm not going to add any more oil. Now I'm going to put the rest of it in, and we'll brown this batch. All right, I got that batch brown where I want it. We'll go ahead and remove it. And now we'll go ahead and brown the onions and the bell pepper next. So let me get all the meat taken out. Like I said, I don't do the turnip stew too often, but it's pretty good a few times a year. Something different. If you never had it, the pork gives the turnips a very good flavor, I find. And yeah, so let me go ahead and get this brown a little bit. I'm gonna scrape the sides of the pan down as well. And I'll brown this for about maybe 5 to 10 minutes just so the onions get wilted. And then I'll start the stew. Alright, my onions and bell pepper is just starting to get a little, maybe 5 minutes or so. I'll go ahead and add the meat. Kind of got to watch it when you're browning the onions and bell pepper. I mean, you don't want to get a burnt taste to them, so go ahead and add. That's pretty much it here. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and add some the rest of my stuff to it. So here's my garlic paste. I added a little water to it. Here's all my dry seasonings. Like I said, I'll show them I add more as it cooks down, but for right now, that's all I'm gonna add. This is 2 cups of water. And I'll add more as it cooks down. And we're gonna add a 1/4 cup of the roux I made. And this is the roux I made in the microwave. And I'll put a link in the description how I made this, but it's very easy. Takes about 22 minutes or so, and it's a perfect roux. And let me get that mixed up, and I'll show you what we look like. All right, I got everything pretty well mixed together now. The other good thing about the homemade roux, compared to the store-bought roux, is the store-bought roux is pretty condensed when you buy it. There's no telling how long it's been sitting in the drawer for. So it's pretty hard, and it takes a little bit to mix it. With the microwave one, it's actually pretty soft. It mixes real easy. So yeah, so there you go. That's pretty much what I'm gonna add for now. I'm gonna cook this down for about an hour, I think, before I taste it, and I'll see what I gotta add at that point. The turnips I'm gonna put in probably the last, like, basically when the meat is almost done. I'm thinking around an hour or so. I'll add the turnips and probably cook it another 20 to 30 minutes on a real slow simmer. And because you don't want to put them in now, then you got overcooked turnips and it's nothing but a big pot of, you know, mush. So yeah, you don't want that. So there you go. If you really like celery, I mean, you can add some celery to this as well. I don't usually buy it. I don't really care for it. Sometimes I'll buy it maybe for chicken salad because it's good to have the little crunch. But other than that, nah. So okay, I'm gonna let this cook for, like I say, about an hour. Then I'll give it a taste and see what I got to add to it. Alrighty then. It's only been about maybe 15 minutes, and my gravy is not quite where I want it to be. So I'm gonna go ahead and add another 1/4 cup of roux. So that'll be a 1/2 cup total, and I think that'd be a good amount to start with. And I think that'll give it a good thick gravy once it cooks down. A 1/4 cup I don't think was just quite enough. So yep, it'll be a 1/2 cup of roux. Now for a turnip. So what you look like when you get them from the store. This is where the stem would be. This is where the root would be. So basically, I just usually take a knife, cut off some of that, cut off some of the stem. Now you can use a knife and go real thin, but this is a potato peeler. I find this works really good. You know, you can just go all the way around with it like that, and it just the peeling comes right off, and it's real thin, so you're not wasting any of the actual turnip. So let me get them all peeled. So basically, to cut them, I'll put the flattest part down and just cut it in half, and then you can cut it in half again, and then you can cut this in half. And I think that'd be a good size for the turnip stew. So, you know, half, done. So I'm gonna go ahead and get them all cut up, and I'll put them in the refrigerator until I'm ready to use them. All right, this is about 40 minutes, I guess, into my cooking since I started everything. And every so often, go ahead and scrape down the sides. I'm gonna go ahead and add, it says 2 cups of water. I'm gonna add a cup. And we'll see what we look like. And I'll keep adding water as I need to. Yeah, I think that'll be good. I did give it a taste. The salt's actually pretty good on it, which I was surprised. Of course, that Cajun seasoning does have salt, so if you use it, you know, make sure you don't add extra until you taste it. Once I add the turnips to it, towards the end, that's going to soak up some of the gravy and salt as well. So when you do that, you might want to retaste it because you might have to add a little bit extra salt. But seasoning's good. The cayenne gave it a nice little zing, which I like. So yeah, I didn't add anything else to it. Just 1 more cup of water, and we'll let this continue to cook until the meat's tender, which it's nowhere near that yet. So. All right, so we've been cooking now for 1 hour and 45 minutes, and let's go ahead and I've been checking the meat as it's been cooking, and it wasn't quite tender yet, but I think we're getting there now. So, you know, basically it just comes apart, and that's kind of what I wanted. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and add the turnips to it, and I'm going to also add another couple. So far I've added total, since I started cooking, 4 cups of water. So this is another cup. And now see if I'm going to add all the turnips or some of the turnips. Might not add them all. So that's all I'm going to add for the turnips. Like I said, that was 4, and I might have used 2. So I'm going to just put these back in the refrigerator, and I'll use them again later on. And we'll cook this until the turnips are done. And I'll just test them like you do a potato with a fork. I mean, you want them basically tender, so I'll show you when I get to that stage. So like I said, right now we had 1 hour and 45. I'm going to probably let this go at least another 20 minutes before I check them. Alright, as far as the doneness of the turnips will actually start looking more translucent as they cook. You know, the fork should just go in it very tender, like all the way through it, with no resistance. So that's about where we're at. And these will actually cook a little bit more once I turn the gravy off and just let it sit. They'll continue to soak up the heat and the juice. So I think that's pretty much where I want it. The total cook time was 2 hours and 15 minutes. And like I said, the pork is falling apart. That's why I like cutting them big. Still got a little fat on some of the meat, but that's good. So I'm gonna add some green onion tops, but before I do that, I'm gonna degrease this sauce. And basically this is what it looks like. The spout's all the way at the bottom, so the grease will float to the top, your gravy will stay down, then you can pour your gravy back out, and when you get to where the grease is at, you stop pouring. So I like it. You know, I'll just kind of skim it like that, and just keep adding to it until I get most of the grease that's floating up in my pitcher. Then I'll let the pitcher kind of sit, and the grease will continue to float up. Then I'll pour the gravy back in. So I got it skimmed pretty much off. I have been having it sit for about 5 minutes now, and this is my pitcher. And as you can see, we got about 1 inch of grease in it now. I'm gonna let this sit for about another 3 or 4 minutes, and then I'll pour the gravy back in the pan. And like I said, I'll just get me a little bowl. You pour the first little bit off, and then we'll go ahead and pour the gravy back in. So I just pour it kind of slow. And basically when you start seeing the grease, you just stop pouring. That's pretty much it. You basically got a pitcher of grease left that I'm gonna throw in the garbage once it cools a little bit. Now at this point, I'm gonna turn the fire back on, get it back to bubbling, and then I'm gonna add some green onion tops to it. These are frozen. I keep in the freezer. Just a couple handfuls, you know, just a little bit. I always add these towards the end because you really don't want to cook them for too long. So, you know, a couple handfuls. Give a little color, give a little flavor. And like I said, I'm just cooking for about 5 minutes. So this is how we look. Like I said, the pork is basically falling apart. That's why I like cutting it big. Got your turnips cooked. I'm gonna have this with some white basmati rice. And yeah, you know, about 2 hours and 20 minutes total. Because like I said, I did warm it back up for 5 more minutes or so. And you know, basically we just kind of just some nice big spoonfuls of that on top. And this is a really good. Like I said, I don't eat I don't eat turnips too often, but they're definitely good. And this is usually about the time of the year that I usually make it. So something like that. Yeah, maybe that'd be enough, I think. Get a little meal. Yeah, let's have a little taste here. Get a little bit of the turnip. See what we got. If you never had pork and turnip stew, give it a try. I think you'd enjoy it. Well, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed my video, please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. Thanks.